Hello, my beautiful people. Today was a cool day. So, I went to the Standing Stones place. If you've been following along in Playbook, you will know what I'm talking about. But I have to back up and I have to start the story. So, get a snack, get your cup of tea. It's a little bit of a story. So, I'm always asking Spirit to show me signs, and I'm always asking, Spirit to just make sure that, sometimes I think things, and I have an overactive imagination. I had imaginary friends as a kid. I can create up a good story. I've written plays with my students. I can write creatively. So sometimes I just wonder if what's going on in my head is just me going on in my head, which I have no doubt happens. But when it comes to this place, Columcille Megalith Park, something's going on there, right? For sure. So I moved back to Pennsylvania in 2019, and I went over to Columcille. I had never heard of it. Now, I grew up about 40 minutes away from here in a little town called Bethlehem, not the same one that you're aware of, the other good one. And I've lived here my entire life until I was an adult, and then moved around a bit. But I never heard of this place, and it's like 35 minutes from me, would have been from me in Bethlehem, and about 45 minutes from me here. But I never heard of it. Never heard of it. So, and my mom was all into this kind of stuff. So, I don't know how I didn't hear about it. So, I never heard of it. So, I went to visit it, and then the pandemic broke out. And so then there was limited, you could go, but it was limited to what you could do and stuff. And there were no events. So, there were like one or two events that I went to before the pandemic, and then one or two that I went to after the pandemic. But they never really resonated with me. There is a strong druidic presence there. In fact, I think the current president is actually a druid. And of course, I'm not an Obadian. I'm what's considered an independent druid, but I'm not opposed to, grove druids or anything like that. I do my own thing. So, anyway, I never met the guy who built the place. His name is Bill, and his partner was Fred. I never met them. Fred died, I think, quite a few years before Bill, and Bill had died the year before I had visited. So, what struck me when I visited, and I visited on my own, like first, I wasn't going to anything, I was just going to check it out. I was really impressed with the chapel, because the chapel reminded me of old Anglican chapels that exist in convents, and you know the story, right? So I just found such peace, and I really enjoyed that chapel. And then there's a bell tower chapel that's not too far away from it, and they're tied together. There's so much I could go into, and I don't want to go down rabbit holes because I'm known for that. So anyway, so I really felt connected to it, and I really did feel connected to the person that the person that dreamt this up, this Bill guy and his partner Fred. So I bought the book, and I read the book, and I thought, wow, like it really must have been like truly, this place Iona, this tiny little island in the Inner Hebrides, must have been like some kind of place to inspire a Presbyterian minister who lived in the Midwest to come back to the States and say, you know what, I'm gonna go build one of these places. And I mean, we're not talking tiny little rocks. We are talking huge, huge structures, megalith structures of rock in the Pennsylvania mountains, which is rocky to begin with. I'm thinking, wow, that island, that Iona, that must be something. So I'm gonna go there one day. I'm gonna go there one day. COVID breaks out. Nobody goes anywhere. I don't even go across the street. And and then when things started opening up, they started having things again at Columcille, and none of them resonated for me. Now, the last one I went to was a Samhain event, and I was in a boot because I had fallen down a mountain and fractured my heel, so I couldn't do much to help. And I'm on the volunteer committee for helping to get things ready, but I couldn't do anything because I was in a boot. And I just all I could think about the whole time I was there was, I really don't think this is what Bill and Fred were thinking of when they built this place. Like, this seems a lot like theater. It doesn't, not that it's not genuine, because you never judge the path of another person, but it just seemed very highly theatrical, and that's just not my vibe. Like, if I'm at theater or if I'm directing theater, I'm doing theater. If I'm doing spiritual stuff, I'm doing spiritual stuff. It's not for show, right? And it just didn't feel, I didn't feel comfortable. So I'm like, well, it's all right. I don't need to come here. I can be spiritual at my house. And I did that. So I decided to go to Iona. You've heard this story in case you haven't. It was a trip just filled with so many synchronicities, so many signs from a spirit. We're on the train to get to Oban, and you take a ferry from Oban to the Isle of Mull, and then you have to take a bus across the Isle of Mull to get to another ferry that takes you over to Iona. And on the train, there were like triple rainbows. And then like this man who worked for the Scottish rail system is fantastic. Um, I think I'm just jealous because we don't have any rail service where I live. So this retiring guy was training a new guy, and he sat back by us so he could tell us what was on each side of each. But it was like amazing. It was like having our own personal tour guide of this man who had worked for the railway for on this route for, years. So like there was that, and then you finally get into you finally get on the ferry to go to Iona, and you can see the abbey like from the boat, and it's just, I just stood there and cried. It was such an emotional moment. And then you get onto the ground, and you just feel the difference. You feel the what we call a thin place, the liminal place, right? So we make our way to the, well, it's funny, the I told you we there was only one room on the whole island that was even free, and I had booked it months in advance. And it turned out like they don't really have cars in Iona. Like the people who live there can have a car. So the person that owned our Airbnb picked us up, and his daughter was a bagpiper. I mean, there aren't that many female bagpipers in the world. Like that was a coincidence, and I thought that was a sign. Then I get there and I find out that this guy who's the caretaker, he not only lived in Bethlehem by the university that is in my hometown. He was intimately involved in the building of Columcille, knew Fred and Bill really well. Um, I think it might have been a sign for him. I think his heart has hardened, and I think maybe I was sent to him, although I don't know that he would see that, because he was very, very bitter and said he would never go back, that it could never be the same without these people. But did point out that Bill was buried right outside my window. Like this is a big house, and there's windows all over it and all over different sides of the house. He was his ashes were spread right in front of my window. So, and there was this giant spider. There was this huge, beautiful spider in my window. And, I think spiders are good luck. So I was like, okay, all right, spirit. Like, there's so many synchronicities. There's so many, then there was the book in the bookstore. There was just all these things that, just pointed to, like, I'm where I'm supposed to be. Fred and Bill, who I did not know, brought me here. And now Fred and Bill have a message for me. I feel more connected to Fred, who is the partner. And I heard that, Bill was quite a character, and this was really his idea. Smoked a pipe. My dad smoked a pipe. But I feel much more connected to Fred. I don't know why. Because like I said, I don't know these guys. So, I don't know. So, anyway. So, I haven't gone to Columcille for a while because I tried to help. I tried to be tried to volunteer. But the only thing they would let you volunteer for was like the grounds crew. And as we've discussed, that's not my forte. I mean, I will, light luminaries and things like that. I'll help out wherever you need, but like, you're not really relying on my skill set. But they made it very clear at the time that there was no interest in anybody helping with other stuff, like programming or like marketing or computers, which is what I'm good at. Like that their board and their leadership, like they were doing everything. No interest in any outsiders coming in to help, like very, very exclusionary. And if you watch the channel, you know that I absolutely despise that kind of approach. I do not like arrogant people. I don't want their energy in my life. I'm not going to willingly put myself into that energy. And I thought, that's fine. This is your gig. I don't know how long you're going to survive because you need money and you need you're a nonprofit. You're going to need money at some point. And, excluding people who know how to help you do that, it's not great for you. But it's your rodeo. Gather ye rosebuds while you may. So I wasn't going to go today. I was going to go today. You know, I almost didn't go today because I almost went hiking with my friends, and then I got all the Standing Stones cards and driving over. And like I said, it's a 45-minute drive for me, and I'm talking to Fred. I'm like, Fred, listen, you're going to have to give me some kind of concrete, real-world evidence that this is you talking to me and not just my mind making this crap up. Because, you know, I can be inventive, so I'm going to need some kind of sign. So I was late. I was late going, and I don't get upset when I'm late about things anymore because I know that there's always a reason why you're late. And what had happened is, like, they haven't, usually they get about 20 people for these kinds of things. Well, they got like twice that, and they couldn't all fit in the house where they were doing the lecture. So they had to split up, like the sort of later arrivals, and they kind of did an outdoor thing at St. Brigid's Stone, which is this gorgeous stone, or the goddess Brigid Stone. And then one of the board members, who's retired mythology professor at Penn State, you know, he talked, and he wrote some of his poetry, and it was really, really great. Like, it was absolutely great. And he was spot on talking about the goddess Brigid is not a Virgin Mother Crone triad. It's she's a poet, healer, and blacksmith. And I mean, it was great. Like, it was great. Like, had I been on time, I would have gone into the house, but I would have missed this guy, and this guy was great. And then I went in, and it's the retired librarian from one of our bigger systems up in the mountains, and she did a fantastic job, you know, talking about what evidence is out there, connecting, you know, the goddess Bridget, and then talking about Saint Bridget, talking about the Morrigan, and, you know, pointing out some things that I you know, I knew, but I hadn't thought about this year. Like, we don't know who Bridget's mother is, either whether she's a goddess or a saint. We don't know who her mother is. We know who her father is, but we don't know who her mother is. And if her mother is Danu or her mother is the Morrigan, if you believe the Morrigan is one person, like, it's interesting. I always get the Morrigan card, so, like, it's just interesting. It was just, like, it was really interesting. It was very thought-provoking. And then I met Jill, who's, I think, in charge of planning things, and she's the one who planned the event. And I was talking to her, and she's just, like, the kindest, nicest person. And, like, I told her, I was straight up, which I'm always straight up. I was straight up, like, this is why I don't come to things, you know, like, it's a very tight-knit group, and honestly, like, it's way too theatrical for me. And she, like, absolutely understood. And she's like, we're trying to change that. We're trying to get more people involved, and we're trying to get more ideas, you know, of things to do and things to host. And it was like, it was, and oh, so I'm sorry. This is how I tell stories, like, you know, 17 facets. I'm standing at the table. They had snacks. They had mulled cider, which is my favorite, hot cider, and then the guy who had done the talk had made Bridget snakes. So that's like it's like a cake, but it's shaped like a snake. It almost, in some ways, reminds you of if you know what a king cake is. It's because it's round, and he had it decorated in the colors of Ireland. But it always makes me laugh whenever I see that cake because, you know, if you believe that, and there's a lot of information out there, and we could go down some serious, serious rabbit holes here, but many cultures before the Christian era, before the Jewish era, believed in goddesses, and that there was like a goddess. There was a goddess culture, and we know that from archaeology. Like, we know we have artifacts of the gods, the women gods, and if you think about it, and like, there's so much you could talk about. You know, we have figures of, like, you know, different female gods, especially in Indian culture, especially in Irish and Celtic culture. What kind of figurines do we have of male gods? We don't. It's always a phallic symbol, right? But we have a lot of archaeological evidence of female gods. And so, so I'm talking, so anyway, so the snake cake, if you think about it, like, we always blame the Christians for treating the women badly to drive them out of the story, but actually kind of happened before that, and then the Christian church kind of nailed the coffin shut. And there's, again, a million rabbit holes you could go down, but, you know, we always say that the downfall of man is because of the snake who talked Eve into eating the apple. You know, it just all, like, it all works together in the fabric of the story. So I could talk forever. I'm trying not to be so scattered, but there's so much interesting stuff to talk about. Anyway, so so I'm thinking in my mind, behind the snacks are pictures of Fred and Bill. And remember, I don't know them. So I'm like, is that Fred? Is that Bill? And I knew that Fred had the darker hair because that's the person I always see when I think of it. I mean, again, I don't know these guys. So they say yes. And then right next to that is a picture of Iona. It's a picture of the St. Martin's Cross at Iona. I played my bagpipes right at that cross. So I'm thinking to myself, they didn't show me any signs. I kid you not. I turn around and I have been pulling the portal card, the portal gate, which is the gate. There is a physical gate there, that's on the property of Columcille. But I turn around and there's this giant photograph of it, like totally golden, right there. And it's like this place where you really can't see where I was sitting for the lecture. And like I wouldn't have seen it had I not turned around, and it was right there. And Fred and Bill were looking right at it. I was like, fine, fine. So I'm like, okay, this isn't in my head. This is where I'm supposed to be. So I go in the kitchen and I'm talking to Jill, and she's just this lovely human being. She totally heard me. I don't know. I mean, I feel like she agreed with a lot of what I was saying. Just about the ego and the stuff that, like really kind of turned me off. And, because I'm good at planning stuff like this, and I'm connected into larger communities of people who would be interested in stuff like this. And I mean, they're nonprofit, but they do need to pay their electric bill and they do need to pay their taxes or whatever. So, more people need to come and return it to what Fred and Bill wanted it to be. Bill and Fred. I always say Fred because Fred seems to be my connection there, but Bill, it was Bill's dream. So it was just such a great experience, and I thought, okay, this is where I'm supposed to be putting my energy. This is what I needed to do, and I needed to get here to meet Jill to realize that, the people I met today were absolutely 100% lovely, and I think that they are on the path to returning it to. It's not a monastery, it's not a convent, so it's not supposed to have that kind of vibe, right? But it is also not a theater, so there's balance in there. So it was just awesome. So I come home, seriously, coming home, I was driving straight into the sun, and I have very poor eyesight to begin with, and driving into the sun, I was just praying that Brigid would get me home safely. I got home safely, and on my table was a beautiful box from June Mermaid. And I ordered her box. She has a monthly box, and she does a limited run. So I ordered that yesterday. So this isn't that, because that would be way too quick. But she sent a box. I did open it because I suck at tape, but I haven't looked inside. So I think I'll do that as a separate video, because I don't want to make the poor girl listen to this whole video. But it was such a blessing to come home and to have this little box here, and to know that I was thinking, in the Brigid, the Brigid collective, this group of women coming together and reclaiming all the lies that have been taught by the churches and by religion about the role of women in spirituality. Just what a bunch of hogwash a lot of it is. And I'm not, I'm not for, I'm for equality and equity. That's what I'm for. I'm not for one gender over another. But, really, when you're listening to the stories and you're listening to how myths get reappropriated into religion and stuff like that, you just think to yourself, thank God I have spirit. Thank God I have spirit. And then I don't have to worry about all that nonsense anymore. And allegiances to this particular spin on a myth. I believe Jesus was real. I believe he did a lot of work with the poor. I believe he worked with the widows and the lepers and things like that. I feel like a historical person named Jesus did that, and then they killed him for it. And I believe that Brigid was a goddess, is a goddess, because if you're a goddess, it's not like that goes away. A triple goddess, but not a mother. Virgin Mother and Crone. I think it was the three arts: poetry, healing, and firework or blacksmithing. So, I think there's a lot we don't know, and we should be open to it all. But I'm so happy to be in a collective of women now who support one another, and I think we need more of that. And if we can, even in these little pods, grow bigger and bigger and bigger, our shiny light is going to get so bright that we will outweigh the darkness. And so, thank you for listening to this. I am going to stop this video, start a new one, and open up this amazing little treat from June Mermaid. So I'll be right back.